I want to say this book belongs to all of us. Um, it was a dojo project from the start, and it was sitting in the dojo, gee, at the early part of 2019 in an IZL program, and Gordon Green Roshi was giving a talk, and he was talking about climate action, climate change, and really questioning, like, what is it going to take? What is it going to take for us to get serious about climate change? And he was struggling with this. He said, you know, it's so hard for us to change our habits, so hard for me to change my own habits. And what would it take to get to what we might think of as a tipping point or a phase shift around these wicked issues that we face today? And I'm sitting there listening to this going, change always happens the same way. It's always resonance. There's always resonance. How do you change the conditions for resonance? And it's like my physics mind is starting to go crazy because I could feel like the principle's so clear. We have to change the conditions for resonance. And then I'm sitting in this dojo going, that's what we do here. That's exactly what we do here. We're always changing the condition for resonance in the human body. And somehow I wanted to put these worlds together. And then the resistance hit. You know, then reality hit. It's like, when do I have time to write a book? You know, at this point, this is pre-COVID time. As with so many of you, I'm traveling all over the place. You know, Mark and I were traveling constantly doing programs, and I was traveling for the Institute, and it just felt like, yeah, there's something here, but is there something in here that will actually give it space? And then life just started insisting on it. Every time I'd sit with you, parts of the book kept popping up. And then I had 2 trips that were scheduled for 1 month that suddenly got canceled. And I had 3 weeks to just open up. So I started writing every day, which is my pattern now. I like to write in the morning. And I started writing, and this thing just keeps emerging like a hologram coming into focus. It just keeps emerging and emerging. And finally, I decide after 3 weeks, it's going to be a book. You know, yes, I have to do this. It's the resistance finally, you know, dropped away, and I was completely committed. I'm going to make this thing happen. Not 1 week later, I get an email from a guy named Trey Wee, someone I'd never met before, who represented this platform I'd never heard of before that was called Publishizer. And it was a way to create a pre-order campaign for a book project, like a Kickstarter for books. Never heard of it, but he calls me up and he says, I'm just wondering if you might have a book project you'd like to pitch on our website. It's like, how does this happen? But this, in fact, is what happens. So I thought, well, the book's called Resonate. I guess this would be a pretty good way to see if it's going to resonate, is to put it on a crowdsourcing campaign or a crowdsourcing platform. So I did. And there again, you were a big help in that. The dojo was wonderful behind helping to drum up interest. It was a very successful pre-order campaign. Sold more than 1,000 copies, which was kind of a critical threshold. And a number of publishers became interested in the book. This is my 4th book, but it came together faster than any book I'd ever worked on because of this kind of crowdsourcing campaign and pre-order, and how quickly a publisher got interested in it and was willing to make a commitment to it. So I know it might seem a long time since you ordered the book or heard about the book, and maybe you've heard me talk about it before, because this has been a topic that's been living and breathing in me for nearly 2 years now. But the book launches today. This is the day. It's finally on Amazon and reviewable and purchasable and all that kind of stuff. And an audio edition of the book. Well, Jeremy, that that isn't ready yet today. That isn't ready yet today. It turns out, and we'll work on that for sure. But Sounds True had expressed some interest in it before, and so the audio rights to the book are still not sold to a publisher yet. I still have those, and so I'm going to be working with how to get an audio version out. So stay tuned, stay tuned. But right now it is available in hardcover, softcover, and also on all the ebook versions are available. So let me offer my thanks to, geez, this idea germinated in the Spring Green Dojo. So I'll start with my thanks there. And then the project moved over the last couple of days to the Mifflin Street Dojo. My thanks to the incredible crew that assembled there, led by Bill. And yes, Rebecca, were you a part of that? No, but we had some delay in getting the book shipped to us. So they just got out in the last couple of days, and Bill was right on it in getting, as he said earlier, all the domestic orders have gotten out to the post office. So thanks to that. And finally, my deep thanks to the virtual dojo and Heather Scobie Roshi for helping organize this. She said to me when she knew that today was the launch day, she said, well, maybe we'll do a party that night if you don't have a better gig. So what could possibly be a better gig than this? So thank you. So let's get into it a little bit. What I'd love to share with you tonight is a little bit of the excitement I have felt about resonance and why this has really lit me up this year. I realized as the more I've written about it, because you might think when you write a book that you know how it's going to end when you start it, but that was not true for me. That was not true. It really emerged as I was writing it, and it surprised me. It surprised me by the end at how resonance is the linchpin. It is the link between our subjective experience, that is how we feel, what you feel right now, and our objective impact in the world. It's the thing that connects the two. And it's connected through energy. It's connected through how energy literally resonates and radiates through our being. And when we can play with this connection, we can work with this instrument to change this effect. That to me is the power. I mean, as you know, I've been working with leaders for more than 25 years now, and how to bring mind and body and energy together as one in leadership. But somehow working with resonance has made it crystal clear to me in a way that I'll say was maybe fuzzier or more abstract before. So it's that that I love to share with you. I hope this book opens doors for you. I hope it helps you realize this magnificent instrument you're working with, this mind-body instrument you're working with, that is capable of vibrating with so many different energies and turning them into action, turning them into the work of your hands, the sound of your voice, the way you hold a child, the way you engage an idea, the way you build a team, the way you make big things happen. It's all coming through how you resonate. So let me share my screen if I can. Let's see. I think this will work.
Excuse me, Ginny. Sorry for interrupting. Heather, would you please look at your chat?
Yes. Oh.
Let me back up a little bit here. All right. Are you seeing the screen? Yes? Yes? Are you seeing the slides? All right, here we go. So to understand resonance, and let me just pause and say, you are welcome to ask questions at any point in this. This is your time, and feel free to come off mute and be a part of this. I'm going to pause at certain points and invite reactions, and we'll change it up a little bit. But I don't want to be talking at you for an hour tonight. You know, that's not my purpose in being here. But I just want to tee up some kind of level set us about what resonance is, and then play with it a little bit, especially in connecting it with our training in Zen. So here we go. To understand resonance, you have to get your head around energy. And what I'm talking about with energy is very clear and simple. If it's not solid, it's not liquid, and it's not gas, and I'm talking about it, or you're talking about it, it's some form of energy.
Okay.
Some form of energy. And even those things we think of as matter, if you remember your Einstein, are actually very dense forms of energy. They're just vibrating so fast that even light can't penetrate them, right? So everything is in vibration. That's our starting point for understanding. Energy operates in waves of a certain frequency and time, a certain wavelength in space, and energy is always in oscillation. So what happens when energy comes together is a fact. And that's the resonance we're talking about. Something happens when energy comes together. It's not a belief. It's not an option. It's not a, well, sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't happen. No, it's going to happen. That waves come together and will interact in characteristic ways. We are no exception to that. You are no exception to that. And when we can start to operate with that fact of resonance, we can leverage it. So what am I talking about with what is resonance? It's to vibrate with. It's when an energy matches something in us in a way that we move with it. I don't know if you had this experience, but I was blown away the first time I sat in one of these cathedrals that had like these 5,000 pipe organs. Have you ever heard these? You know, they, let me see, this probably isn't going to be an incredibly moving experience over a computer sound system, but let's try it. This is actually Wiener's Toccata to the Fifth Symphony. Just imagine for a moment what happens as you're sitting and you're listening to these pipe organs, right? And I'm going to just be quiet for a moment. Oh, well, that was not exactly what I wanted to have happen, but I'm going to move this ahead if I can. You've gotten the beginning part. So you've got the basic pulse of this thing, the basic life pulse of this piece. And then it gets to a very quiet part. Your body where this goes. So let me just ask you, why don't you put it in the chat? If you have access to the chat, just put in the chat or come off mute if you like. But as you feel it, especially as you feel the low notes kick in, what is the sensation in the physical body, in your physical body? And maybe you have to use a little imagination to imagine what it'd be like if you were really sitting with these pipes. But what do you notice in the body? So as the deep tones come in, there's like a groundedness in it. It starts with a vibration that you know, it tends to be a little higher in the body, and then something a little lower down comes in, and here come the big deep tones, right? That rumbling, that shaking, the vibration in the feet. You know, it's little wonder that they put it, you know, I mean, it becomes like a spiritual experience, right? To be able to vibrate with this music coming through your body. little wonder that every church that could afford one put one of these things in there, right? Because people could feel music then. They could feel it. And if you're sitting in, if you ever experienced one of these live, you probably know this. It may be a little different in different bodies, but I still remember the first time this hit me, that I could feel as those deep tones came in, it went all the way down, right? And that characteristic of deeper frequencies is lower in the body and higher frequencies that go higher up shows us one of the truths about how this instrument, your instrument, works as a resonator. Thank you for writing that in the chat. So resonance is both a universal principle of change because it's what happened when waves come together, but it's also very specific where certain frequencies get something going and others don't. Like right now in the room that you're sitting in, you have instruments, you have sensors that can pick up the vibration of airwaves that carry sound. That's why you can hear my voice. But you're not picking up, the gamma rays. You're not, there's the cosmic rays are zipping through the room and you're not actually seeing them. So there's certain waves that when they're in a range, we have the instrument to resonate with them. We can pick up that signal and carry it, relay it, change it, amplify it. Any of those we would call resonance. We are resounding the signal. But if there's not a match, it goes right by us. If we're not tuned to it, we miss it. And it may be that if there's not enough energy, it may just dissipate away. It may get stored for later. I mean, that's certainly a phenomenon we're experiencing in climate change. For a long time, the heat went into the atmosphere. It didn't seem to make a lot of difference. It was just dissipating, right? But indeed, being stored up for an eventual tipping point. So all of those qualities come into how resonance works. It's universal, but it's also specific. And in that sense, it connects the two parts of your being as well. Your universal aspect, where you are part of, right? A part of the whole picture, operating in this unified field, this unified sense, and you are exactly a differentiated instrument, exactly who you are. So the resonance shows up in every sense, in every aspect of our life, from how we perceive light in its various colors by what gets reflected versus absorbed. Same as when you look at the beautiful fall colors that are out now, the color we see are the frequencies left over after white light, in a sense, has been absorbed. And the light that matched, the frequencies that matched what that little leaf could use, got absorbed and the rest reflected. So everything around us in a world of living color is an example of resonance. We can create conditions like putting sand on speakers to see sound waves, to see how sound shows up in various incredible forms under different frequencies. We could see effects of resonance, sometimes in striking ways. A striking example came some years ago in the Tacoma Narrows, where you can hit the resonant frequency of an otherwise very stable bridge by blowing 40-mile-an-hour winds through it, and the whole thing starts to vibrate, vibrating itself apart. Pretty bad day to be driving on that bridge, but it also changed bridge design thereafter. There's also constant frequencies in everyday life. I say constant frequencies, meaning life operates in vibrations. Again and again, this example, you think of the swing set from your youth. We use this in Zen leader programs to talk about how to work with rhythms around us in a way that help us add our effort at just the right time, so we're not exhausting ourselves. Instead, we can actually have fun. When we can work with the forces around us, there's a more resilient and I'll call it natural, or it's a way of working that accords a larger picture. We could say it accords the way. And of course, the first thing to go viral, or the first thing to have catch resonance, was a virus, or our viruses, right? And one of the reasons they can be repeated, that signal is repeated, is because it hits something common in all of us. It has something in common with all of us. So just like in social media, or a highly resonant message, when it resonates a truth, or in this case resonates an illness that many people pick up, it can spread, of course, exponentially. Interestingly, our response to COVID hasn't been so resonant. It started out pretty resonant, but you can really see what happens when resonance gets interrupted. When you get a very divided response between, some people are masked, some people not masked, or some people distance, some people not distance. The result being that you cut the resonance and you weaken the response. And that's exactly what we're seeing going on in our country right now, which is one reason we're getting, as a country, as a society, so much weaker. We're even questioning, is our democracy, will our democratic institutions hold? Because people are being divided against one another. And it's an unfortunately intentional strategy to create weakness so that people can't mount a resonant response. Good to see what's going on. It's good to see what is going on. I don't mean it's good news, but it's important that we see it, because to be ignorant of it breeds more suffering. It's when we see it that at least we can start to do something about it. So here we are, vibrations everywhere. We plan our life to it. Resonance is a fact. It is a fact. How we resonate is a choice. And that's where it really comes into this magnificent instrument you are. And I use this image. Mary Mashad, who I also tip my hat to, is the illustrator for Resonate. And she created these little images to help try to capture this instrument that you are. Head, heart, and hara are the three centers we focus on in how to bring coherence among them in a way that your signal can add up to its strongest total. Because again, it's just like waves on a body of water. When they come together, they can cancel each other out, they can interfere and create chop, or they can add up to big waves. And when they add up to big waves, they have a bigger effect, just like you, just like you. So how we resonate is a choice. But here's what happens. At our best, we can send out our clear signal. I call it, you ring your true note. You ring out your true note. And the potential is enormous, because we have the capacity to vibrate with so many different energies and then turn that into things that matter. I say you are a universal energy concentrator. You can take in universal energy, the energy out here is available at the whole spectrum of it. All the various kinds of energy available, whether it's something in the zeitgeist or something from the sun or something in the vibe of a relationship or the feeling of a room. You can work with all those energies and turn it into the things that you're trying to create. But when we first get this contraption, it's not in prime working order. And why is it? It's because we're human beings and we've grown up through a life where stuff has happened, shall we say. Stuff has happened. If you take a look at how energy works, we could say it's stronger when we add up, when we can start to create this coherence in terms of getting our brain waves to add up, or our heart and our brain to add up, or even greater as we start to work with other people, getting our interpersonal coherence to add up. Those are all possible. And yet, what happens in the human body is that we are both energy and matter. And this little picture is depicting, in a sense, a blend of Eastern and Western views of that energy. A Western view would run around with the magnetometer and see the electromagnetic field around the human body, a torus-shaped field, and how it's magnified by the heart, and how it gets magnified more when the heart is in certain coherent pattern with the brain. An Eastern view would look at chakra systems or meridians or some sense of energy that runs up and down the spine. However you look at it, east or west, we are both energy and matter. We have this constant combination going on, but energy and matter do not change at the same rates. Going back to our little water, our white water here, that rock is not changing as fast as the flow of the water. And likewise in you and me, the rocks of our being are the deeply embodied habits or the trauma or the inheritance or the life experience that has been built into our infrastructure versus the thoughts at the surface, which could change, which might change quickly, or emotions, which are kind of in between, because emotions are mediated by chemicals in the liquid in the blood. So they're kind of an in-between time zone where emotions last. But what happens is the deep, solid habits or even emotions keep triggering thoughts that will agree with them. And it can lock us into patterns that are neurotic or are based in habit or based in the past and not able to really be fully in the present. So the good news, I mean, energy is always shaping form. As you just blow winds across the sand, you're going to get certain wave patterns. It's just what happens. And then conversely, form is going to guide energy. So initially when water's running downhill, it's going to maybe find some little path down the mountain. But the next time water's going to run downhill, it's going to be inclined to follow that same path. So after a while, the form's directing the energy. You get a gorge through that mountain, and now the energy is always going to go that way, right? The same thing's happening in you and me. That initially energy is by how our senses work, and we're taking in this energy. It's changing our neurons. It's changing how they're connected. It's creating form in us. And after a while, that form directs our energy for better and for worse. So if we want it to ring at its full note or be at its most vibrant, there's going to be inner work to do to clean out the stuck points, to help those three centers integrate, to tune, tame the body. We say practices that integrate us, that get these three centers working together, that will tune us to get rid of extra tension so we're in tune, and that tame our ego, our fears, our impulses. These are the practices that come out of Zen training that help us get this instrument to a place where it can work. So let me stop the screen share here and let's just come back together for a moment. And I wanna just ask you, for those of you who do train in Zen, to just write in the chat or come off mute. Some of you can come off mute to just speak to this, but I want you to just reflect on how does what you've experienced in Zen training so far, or whatever you've experienced in it, however many years you've been doing it, or months or weeks or minutes, right? What are some examples of how it changes vibration in you? How does it change how you resonate? What are you noticing? So just write in the chat. Just think about that for a minute. What vibrations change as you sit? What do you notice? I'm going to open up the chat and see what your experience is. I really invite you to think about it. It changes the quality of the voice. Yeah. The voice is one of the ways where we hear resonance show up in a person. So if a voice is very calm and reassuring, it communicates a kind of settling feeling. But if you take the same body and you start to tighten the strings and you use the same words, even if it's the same reassuring words, but it's not a reassuring feeling because it's now coming out with tension. So absolutely the sitting helps relax the body, so it changes that quality in the body. Changes sensitivity. Now think about that one for a moment. Changes sensitivity. So what is sensitivity? you know, when you really get down to the physics of it, sensitivity means our ability to vibrate with more energy. So if we're kind of like dull-witted, or we're not very sensitive, or we're, you know, we miss social cues, it means we're not vibrating with that energy. It's available, but we're ignoring it. Or it doesn't match us or something. Whereas when we really quiet down, there can be we can start to hear more and more subtle signals. So it's telling us that this instrument is able to be tuned to a wider range, to pick up more vibrations. It's sort of like if you are a wine drinker and you first start to taste wine. The first time you taste wine, you can tell the difference between red and white, but like that's about it. Or sweet and not sweet or something. But if you became a wine connoisseur and you really studied wine and you loved wine and you just really cared about the distinctions in wine, over time your palate would be trained to pick out subtleties. In other words, you'd be expanding the differentiation of the sensitivity that you're able to distinguish. That's an example of what we're talking about, what I'm talking about, where we can pick up more eventually than we did at the start through our training, through how we train our part. And literally when you look in the cortex, for people who have refined their senses in any way, you start to see big maps start to get made of that. So somebody who has really refined their finger work in order to play a certain kind of musical instrument, that part of the somatosensory cortex is all expanded because those fingers had to work so carefully. So what are some of the other changes? The practicing slows down long enough to listen to the earth. That we're going to play with the slowing down a little bit. In fact, there's an incredible key in that one. I remember Tonoi Roshi saying to me years ago, many years ago, I was sitting at the dojo in Hawaii and he kind of walked by in front of me. It wasn't exactly a formal sit, it was kind of like a free sit, but I was in there sitting in the dojo and he walked by, he almost like muttered under his breath. He just said to me, this is like free advice, you know, you get right from Tonoi Roshi. He said, slow down your breath even more, you'll see all the way through. Slow down your breath even more, you'll see all the way through. So part of what breath is regulating in the body is it's anchoring a vibration, a frequency. And when we slow down that breath, it's slowing down the rate at which thought develops. There's a condition you can create in meditation where thought will stop altogether. You can't force it because the thought to stop thought is still a thought, you know. But what happens is the hara is so powerful, the base of the abdomen is so powerful, it can cut discursive thought. When you're sitting, I mean, you still remember the first sesshin this happened to me, and where I was sitting and breathing, and I really was breathing deeply because my legs hurt so much. And I thought, if I'm not breathing deeply, you know, I'm out of here. So I'm really working the breath. And much to my surprise, my head shut off completely. Absolutely no thought. I didn't even know it had an off switch up to that point. I had no idea that was even possible, but it is possible. So this slowing down is really key. And then as you slow down, it's like fan blades. If you think about how a propeller works, when a propeller goes really fast, it looks solid, right? It looks solid. But when it slows down, you can easily see through it. You could throw a beanbag through it, right? You see the spaciousness when things slow down. The same thing happens in you. When you slow it down, you start to see through the ego. You start to see through the present moment. You have a feeling of spaciousness even in the midst of whatever's going on. So that slowing down and that sense of connecting, being a part of the rhythm of the earth, the rhythm of connection, how wonderful is that, getting that energy to work with. So what happens when you are overly sensitive to the vibrations around you? Beth asks a great question. How do you process that, you know? And the it's a real question. And a lot of people feel like their option is either to not pay attention to it, in which case I'm not vibrating with it, you know, so that would be ignoring it, or I take it in and it churns me up and now I'm a mess, you know. If those are my two choices, neither one is very good, is it? But there's a third choice. There's a different way to be where we just let it drop through, where we vibrate with it, but the way we carry it or the way it goes through us is like a rain gutter to the earth. That possibility exists in this human body. And again, the way of working breath so it drops down is the way to kind of create that channel. So great question. So we're seeing all kinds of examples of how vibration change, or how our resonance changes, changing our inner dialogue, the rate of it as well as the quality of it, changing the calmness, changing our sensitivity, the changing the slowing down. You know, I'm thinking this might be a good segue to Rebecca and Heather, because I'd asked them to prepare something because I wanted to be surprised by some part of what happened tonight. So, but they kind of gave me a briefing that was going to involve like a guided meditation. So I'm going to turn over to them and see where they'll take us next, what we might experience in this training. Go ahead.
Thank you, Roshi. So I'm Rebecca, and Heather and I are going to do a small experiment for you to run an experiment in your own body, the things that Ginny has been talking about with resonance. And it's going to have 3 acts. So we're going to do a short play in your body in 3 acts. And if you're like in a room where others can see you, don't worry, they're not even going to really notice that anything is changing. But what I'm going to ask you to do is just make yourself comfortable. So if you're sitting in like a task chair, or if you're at home sitting in a comfy chair, make sure you can feel your butt bones in your cushion, and put your feet flat on the ground. Don't cross them over like this. We're not trying to be like, you know, we're trying to be flat-footed. So if you're sitting on a chair, you want to feel like butt and balls of feet are on the ground, okay? And for those of you who are sitting on a cushion, assume the position, you know what we're talking about, right? So either in Seiza or in your meditation stance. And here are the 3 acts. You're gonna hear 3 bells. During the first bell, I invite you to just sit like you would. So Roshi just talked about lengthening your breath, lengthening specifically your exhale, and seeing if you can breathe from Hara, right? So for the first minute or so, couple minutes, I just want you to focus on extending your breath. Then I'm gonna ring the bell once. I'm gonna give you one small cue. That's going to be the second act. It will be a surprise to you. And then Scoby Roshi is going to come on and ring the bell and give you yet another cue. So it's one sit in 3 acts. Here we go. Butt, feet, just after the bell. Breathe deeply into your Hara. Now, I invite you to imagine that one of the 43 of us is really struggling with this sit. Maybe our legs hurt, maybe our heart hurts, maybe we're having a hard time breathing. How can you strengthen your sitting to give them strength?
Okay, I want you to look around the room and just notice what your eyes are liking to look at in the room, either because of the color or the texture or the way that the light reflects on the object. You can move your head around and just find what your eyes like to enjoy in this moment. When you find something that your eyes like, I want you to just gaze at it and really enjoy seeing that thing for a moment. And as you gaze in this way, notice if anything changes in your body. Okay, now when we sit, we're going to sit for a few more minutes. And I want you to feel like you're expanding your awareness in a way that allows you to be as big as the room. So sit in this way.
Okay. You've just experienced sitting in 3 acts. And anyone is welcome to take themselves off mute, but we'd like to hear from a few of you if there was a difference between sit 1, sit 2, which was to extend your strength to someone who was struggling, or sit 3, which was to sit as if you were the whole room. Who'd like to start?
I'll start. I'm Paul. The sitting, extending myself to someone else, the second act. I got extremely hot, started to sweat. My whole body just was like radiating heat. The third sit, I sort of fooled myself a little into thinking I was as big as the room, but I was really kind of just a quadrant of the room is really what I could muster to be a true experience.
Thank you, Paul. And Ginny, jump in if you want to expound from your Resonate perspective on any of these folks. Let's hear from someone else.
Rebecca, Roshi, the third sitting, it seemed like the 180 just enlarged, and it felt as if my body was lifting up to the ceiling. I had that feeling one other time after session in Chozenji, when my partner and I, Lee Burton, were walking through Ala Moana shopping center. And we're walking through, and he said, Jim, how tall are you? I said, 10 feet. He said, yeah, me too. It was as if I'm only 5'5", but he said, yeah, it's like we're up here, we see hundreds of people, for like 500 yards, 1,000 yards, and everybody on the left and right too. I had that same feeling with the third sitting, but in a smaller scale. But it was, and I'm sweating too.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Ben.
So I'm not in very good lighting here, and I'm very new to this actually, and so I can't believe I'm actually sharing. So during the second act, when I felt this feeling of lightness and joy going out, and it was really about if there was someone that needed to have a lighter feeling, that was just what I felt that I needed to give in that moment. And then in the third act, I'm in the midst of moving. And so there's been a lot of upheaval in my life right now. And I'm sitting in this space there's a lot of chaos around me because I have boxes and things half unpacked. But what I focused on was I have a candle lit and a vase that has some feathers in it. And that became just such a peaceful feeling for me amongst all the chaos. And I desperately need to feel that right now. And I was totally absorbed in that feeling of just peace and calm. So it was pretty profound transitions, I would say.
Thank you. Roshi?
I'm remembering Dan Siegel's definition of mind, which really comes to mind as I listen to your experience. And also feel free to write some in the chat if you like. I notice a couple of you have already written. And thank you so much, Paul and Ginny and Beth, for sharing. But Dan Siegel defines mind as an embodied relational process that directs the flow of energy. And so as soon as we say, put your mind on trying to help someone, energy shifts. As soon as we say, mind, expand to the room, energy shifts. And maybe it shifts a little bit or it shifts a lot of it in your experience. We differ that way, and it's all okay. It's not like there's one right answer. What I would just draw your attention to, though, is, isn't that marvelous? Isn't that marvelous? That by redirecting mind, we can change how energy flows through us and from us. Did anyone feel something different from the screen when we were in the second act? I'm curious. Did you feel like people helping you? How many thumbs up if you felt something? Yeah, did you see? Yeah. Feel. Or you felt expand? It's great. Wonderful. Heather and Rebecca, thank you so much. The heart expanding, right. As soon as the heart expands, don't you feel how it opens up? It like relaxes. Something that had been a little cramped opens up. It's like, why was it tighter before? But all of this stuff passes beneath our conscious awareness until it doesn't. And once we start to work with it, there's enormous flexibility with how we can work with our mind-body instrument. So Heather and Rebecca, any wrap up from you? Anything you'd like to add or observe?
I guess just from my perspective, when we sit, it's so important. I mean, it's so important to set your intention, and an intention that's just for yourself is really not big enough. Right. So you've now experienced 3 different acts of what this can be. Heather?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I agree, and that I'd also add that it goes beyond just when we're sitting. So in this time when we're spending so much time on our computers and our awareness is going like this, you have the tools at your disposal to change that and to make your awareness bigger. And now you have the experience in your body of how that changes your internal experience. And also how that affects potentially other people as well.
That's right. I mean, a simple and powerful experience. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I knew they would come up with something magical. So I so appreciate you. I so appreciate you adding that. And what an example of how, again, we connect from our inner experience changes and the outer experience changes in the same path, because resonance is the thing that links the two. Rebecca made the comment that sitting for ourselves is too small. I would expand that to say living for ourselves is too small. That when we're able to use this as an instrument in service of others, that flip, we call it the foundational flip of Zen leadership, starts to let something come through us rather than using all these resources of life to keep this system alive. Keeping ourselves alive is a necessary function, but I would call it like, table meld. It's table stakes. It's kind of like a basic we have to take care of, but there's no person alive who lives their happiest life by only keeping themselves alive. that doesn't happen. It's when we can bring out our gifts and lean, the way we mentally experience leaning into purpose or living our purpose is when we're able to flow with the larger conditions of life in a way that's exactly true to you, exactly true for you. So The let me just do a time check here. I think there's one other way of playing with energy that I'd like to do together, and then we'll kind of bring this to a close. But this is another meditation. This is a meditation I'm going to talk you through. And thank you so much, those of you who are continuing to write in the chat. I'm struck by how the emotions come out in this. So many of you are experiencing emotion. And in this next exercise, we're going to invite emotion as well. I'd like to kind of build on some of what Rebecca and Heather have just taken us through, but take it now into your body and do a tuning exercise. A tuning exercise that can help open up this body. So I'm going to cue us as we go. I'd like you to sit comfortably in a way that if you let out a sigh of relief, it goes straight down. So just adjust yourself however you need to, so that sigh of relief can go straight down. So if you're sitting back like this, the sigh of relief will only go as far as your solar plexus. So coming forward, so because I'd like you to be able to feel low in the hara and right down to the root chakra, the pelvic floor even. And just send the sound down this way. Now you don't have to come off mute, but I'm going to make the sound. And I encourage you to make the sound too. I mean, no one else is around you. Well, a couple of you are together, but so you can make this sound and no one will notice. But I'd like you to use this sound. Why sound? Because it vibrates. And different sounds will vibrate in us in ways that tease apart tension. And so we're going to use sound to do some inner work. So just get yourself in a position. You could also do this lying down. And if you'd like to lie down and do it, that's fine too. But let the body relax. That's my main point, because we're going to use the vibration to open up what's tight. So we're going to do 21 breaths together. 21 breaths. This is going to take a few minutes, but 21 breaths, you might think, yeah, but we're going to make these deep and slow and long breaths. So not too long. But the first one, we're going to send down vertically, right through the base of the hara to the sound of O. We're going to make it a vertical penetrating O. It's again, like a rain gutter, taking water from an eaves to the earth. Okay, so exhale down O. In the next exhale, we're going to widen O. We're going to fill the whole room, as Heather would say, and expand it in all dimensions into the universe. The third breath is silent, but we're feeling into the emotion of this bigness, this stability. The next breath, we come up to the second chakra, belly button area. We breathe down the sound of ooh, ooh. Vertical, ooh. Horizontal, expand ooh in all dimensions. The next breath, silently feel the bigness and connection of this state. The next exhale drops vertically the sound of ah. Radiating the solar plexus. The next one radiates out in all dimensions the sound of ah. The next one is silent, connecting with the emotion of this bigness. The next exhale radiates the heart with the sound of A, vertically first. Opening in all dimensions the sound of A. Silently feeling into the emotion of this bigness. What is this emotion for you? Next, we radiate the throat with the vertical E. We widen out into the universe the sound of E. Silently connect with the emotion of this creative expanse. Next one, we send the sound of as an M, down from the head all the way through to the hara, vertically. Next one, radiating out in all dimensions. Silently connect with that all-expansive wisdom, the emotion of that. Now the sound of NG, ing, sent all the way vertically, activating the crown chakra. Expanding out in all dimensions. And just resting in that bigness, an open vessel, the emotion of that. Bring your eyes back to regular focus. Let me check in with you. Let me just check in with you. Either come off mute or on the chat. Anything shift for you in your own vibration as you direct energy in different ways? Anything you noticed with the different sounds or the expansion or the emotion that shifts in you? Anything different about your state now than 5 minutes ago? Feel into that. It can be a calmness, a bigness, it can be relaxation. Remember, mind is directing the flow of energy. So as we open, it's almost like a cramp we didn't know we were holding. Let's go. A bigness, I like a completeness, a synergy, a tingling. Individual results may vary, but whatever's ready to open, opens. Whatever's ready to open, opens. So, thank you. More expansive, open, vibrant, open. We have the capacity to do this. Now, what do we get to feel from one another when that happens? We feel that openness. That energy communicates. Again, resonance is the link between the inner experience and the outer experience, the outer effect. So what do we make possible? What do we make possible? We're able to get on the same wavelength with people because we're feeling into the field. We're picking up the energy. So we're able to strengthen relationships. Here's my shout out to Dr. Christy Grimes. She was the winner of our Resonate Image Contest with this lovely picture of her sons. A reminder that we're always creating a wake around us. We often don't see it unless we're in water playing, but we're always creating this wake. And that wake is always interacting with other people's wakes. How we can help the teams that we're a part of enter this flow state or be greater than the sum of their parts. How we can work with the natural forces and add our momentum to them in ways that help us reach what the goals we would realize. How we can catalyze social change to get energy to add up to tipping points where old forms fall away and new forms are possible. That's all possible through how we use our energy to direct, our mind to direct energy. And what part of all that menu is yours? Here's the beauty of it. It's the part you resonate with. It's like no mystery. It's what lights you up. And here's the commitment I've made to myself. If what plays through me suggests, if there's some creative act or some work or some effort or something, there might be a little resistance at first, but my commitment is if it's mine, I'll do it. That's it. If it's mine, I'll do it. And listening for those signals with that sincerity has served me very well. Because the signals come through, and when I start doing them, I go, oh yeah, this is mine. Yeah, I own this. I would wish you the same freedom. I really would. You know, so many people struggle with what should I be doing with my life, or is this right, or is that right, or is this right? The head is the last to know, in my experience. Give it to the body. See what you resonate with. And if it's yours, do it. And so, in honor of this day, and here, this is, if you, many of you know my love of rockets. So if I'm going to launch a book, there has to be a rocket involved somewhere. So let's see if we can get this to work. Okay, so let's get a rocket in this picture. Oh wait, come on back, rocket. I wasn't ready. All right, let's get back here. Let's go. Let's see. Oh, there we go. All right, we have a launch. Okay, we have a launch of the book Resonate. We have liftoff. And we have for you a couple of things. One is there's a website. Emily, a shout out to you for all of her work in putting this website together, resonatethebook.com, with a dozen videos that accompany all of the exercises of the book. And there's also other resources there, interviews and whatnot. So I invite you to go visit resonatethebook.com. We also have a contest, a drawing. This is where, again, you could help build some resonance behind the book. Starting today, we can put reviews on Amazon. And Amazon, because it's become such a collector, it is a place where things resonate, for better and worse, you know. But it is where books get noticed, and they get noticed by reviews, and they get noticed by concentrated purchases. So the review we could really help us with. If you would write a review, take a picture of it or screenshot, send it to resonatethebook@gmail.com. We'll put it in a drawing, and you will win a bookmark, a wonderful infographic that Mary Mashad put together that kind of summarizes the book for sure. And then we'll have a drawing for these fabulous prizes, coaching sessions or a free seat in an IZL program. So these are worth hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And I really encourage you to please be a part of this in the month of October. So help us build resonance with this. That would be such a great repay. And then Zen Leader programs you can learn about on our website, zenleader.global. Coming in the spring, we're going to be having a Resonate course with our partners at Interplicity. It'll be a combination online and live course on Resonate, so that you can look for that in the spring. And even on resonatebook.com, there's a place you can click if you'd like to be notified of that course as we get it underway. And with that, we're done. Okay.
I was hoping there was going to be a dance party. We want to thank you all so very much for joining Ginny in her launch this evening. You know, if anybody would like to come off mute and give a personal thank you to Ginny, or a shout out, or you know, anything you'd like to contribute to tonight, we'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, we know it's late in many parts of the world. Thank you for whatever time you had to lift your head off of your pillow to join us for this worldwide event. We know we had at least 2 continents here this evening. So it's wonderful to have you with us, and we'll hang out for a little while if anybody wants to connect through the resonance of their own voice. Ginny, thank you so much. And Heather, thank you for hosting us in the virtual dojo.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Whitelaw Roshi.
Thank you.
Thank you.